Hey everybody, this is Mike. This is my first do-it-yourself video. Today I'm going to be talking about stripping paint and fixing wood rot and spindles. Um, Today specifically I'm going to be talking about this Citristrip stripping gel. I got this at Home Depot. It's a gel-based stripper. I think it's supposed to be more on the greener side, which makes me a little bit nervous because typically for me the green means it's not going to work. But I'll give you an idea of kind of what I'm working with here. So I have a pretty big front porch. I don't know if you can see, but I got a lot of spindles. This is the front of the porch and the back of the porch and this side. So I had some replacement spindles made. A company actually based in Montana named Western Spindle. I sent a copy of, I ripped out a rotted spindle. I sent it to them, and they will make any spindles custom, so I highly recommend that. This particular spindle is actually in cedar, but it's primed and it's ready to get put in. You can see that we have the space where it needs to go. And then the rest of the project really is consisting of peeling paint. So I've done a little bit of scraping already, and I'll give you a close-up look here. You can see that the spindle's definitely a little weathered. You can see the paint is peeling. I actually did a lead test, and I think what I'm looking at here is some latex paint over probably some oil-based lead paint. The lead came up positive on the second layer, so I have to take precautions. Have the HEPA vac, make sure that I'm not using really any power sanding. Any sanding that I've done is wet sanding. But in any case, wanted to repaint these spindles, and if you notice with the chipped paint that's already off, if I just prime and paint on top of that, it's going to look really uneven. It's not going to look too good. So what I was going to do, in some cases where there's some serious rot in the spindles, I'm replacing them, and then it makes it pretty easy to paint. But the spindles aren't cheap, and you can see I have a lot of them. So I only have about 20 replacement spindles. The rest I'm really trying to get the peeling paint, and thus I went with a chemical stripper. It's just too much to try to wet sand all of them. And what you're looking at here is the what's the name of it? The Citristrip. And I put a little bit in the metal pan. I followed the directions to a T. I brushed it on. I waited for a half hour, and then I used my trusty scraper to remove it. And as you can see, it didn't really get off all the paint. Now I did this with 2 coats of the stripper, and it seemed like it got that top layer of latex off, but it really didn't do such a good job on the oil-based paint, which I think is the lead paint underneath. So, but I did get all the peeling paint off. I'm not gonna stain it. I'm just gonna reprime it and paint it. So that might be okay. If you can see in some of the detail, I used a brush, but it just really didn't come out. So I don't know if I'm really too happy with the product. I mean, I didn't expect to scrape it in a half hour and everything magically to come off, but you can see it kind of left a big gooey mess on top of the cardboard that I had put down over the plastic for the job. So I don't know. I'm not sure if I really give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down, but I think considering that I've been out here for probably about 2 hours just working on these 2 spindles, I might have to either investigate how a heat gun would take off that paint, or actually hire a general contractor with a crew, because by this rate I'll have these spindles done in 2 years. Now the ones that I replaced, I'll kind of walk around, I'll show you what I didn't want. So these were spindles that were repainted, but the paint, it's probably the 3rd layer of paint. So you can see how on the bottom they're a little bit uneven. There was a little bit of rot here that I had to fix. And then if you noticed, there are 2 replacement spindles. You can see those are the ones that are nice and solid here. You can see the right here and right here. Some dirt here. I gotta get that painted. And if I walk around the back, you'll see the sort of the finished product, which is many of the spindles here have been actually replaced and repainted. So if you look at the top here, you can see where there was some chip paint and painted over. It looks okay, but it doesn't look as nice as the completely brand new spindles, obviously, which have been primed and painted, so they're nice and smooth. They look really nice. The kind of the finished product looks great. So in this particular row, it's kind of hard to spot which ones are the replacements. They're exact replicas, and the way that I actually put them in, and I saw some videos online, and I'll kind of talk about that as well, is so make sure you prime all 6 sides of the spindle, right? The top and the bottom, most important, where moisture gets comes in, and if it's not primed, if the rail's not primed and the spindle's not primed, it sort of acts like a sponge, and you're going to get some rot quickly. And this porch actually is facing the sun, so it does get dry in the daytime. But if you notice, there's still some sort of mildew, and it was starting to show signs of rot. I think I'm not going to have any problems if I get this fixed. But so what I did to get the spindles out in this particular case, there was rot near the bottom, so it was just easy. I could literally, if I pulled one, I pulled it out. But the other ones that I removed, I just cut the spindle here, and then I took off the top piece and took off the bottom piece. They were actually toe-nailed in. There were some nails sticking out, so I just used a Dremel to cut the nail heads off. And then I put some wood hardener in it wasn't a hole, it was just a little bit of rot, so I used the screwdriver to get all the dead wood out. Put some wood hardener in there for a couple hours, gave it a base, and then I used the Midwax wood filler epoxy to fill in the rest of the hole, and which I did. You see that right here, that's the epoxy. Filed it, sanded it down, and then put a coat of primer on top of that. And same thing, you can see at the top portion where the spindle was, I put some primer in there. It's actually hard to tell, it's kind of a light, but the rot actually primarily is on the bottom rails, not in the top rails, because that's where the wood that's where the water on this particular porch tends to sit, because it's a flat rail that doesn't really have too much of a slope to it. So this house is pretty old. It was built in 1895. I don't think this is necessarily the original railing, because I saw some pictures the turn of the century where there wasn't actually a railing on the porch at all. Sorry, there's an airplane going overhead if you hear that. So in any case, I put the primer there. I will walk around, hopefully not making you dizzy. And here is the replacement spindle. So let me pick it up here. You can see it. It's been primed on all sides, right? I'm not going to do this now because I need both of my hands to do this, but what I would do here is it barely fits. It's a little bit tight, so I will make sure that I get that in. I'll use either a mallet or if I have to, I could just sand the bottom and reprime it if it's a little bit too long. I think in terms of the replica, it might have been almost 1/8 of an inch too tall, so I had to cut it down a little bit. It still might be a little bit long, but obviously I'd rather have it a little bit long because I can always shorten it, whereas if I cut it too short, I can't make it any longer. So in any case, so what I would do there is once I get that set and once that it's square, in this particular case, the spindle distance, I just measure out where they were previously, and I could tell by, in this case, where the epoxy is here, and then the top, I line it up. And I don't have a nail gun. I wish I did, but 2 things to mention is that, number 1, these are Port Orford cedar spindles, so I need to use stainless nails. Otherwise, and you can probably see here, I don't think they used stainless nails in the past here. There's some rust in some of the toenails. So what I would do is I would put that in once it's level, and then I would drill pilot holes, and then I would use 2.5 stainless steel nails to toenail. I put 2 on the front side, 2 on the back side, and then same thing at the top. So I use a total of 8 nails for each spindle, drill a pilot hole, and one of the challenges as you're hammering at least for me, because I don't have the nail gun, the trusty hammer, as you're hammering the nails in, you don't want to hit the actual spindle because it'll damage it. So use a nail set. Start off hammering it in through the pilot hole, and then once it gets into the bottom rail and the top rail, and you feel that resistance, that's when I use the nail set to finish it in. Once you do that, then I either put some silicone caulk in the nail holes or some more epoxy, reprime over the holes because you don't want any holes open here, and then prime it and put the top coat on. And as I mentioned before, you can see the finished product over here. And they actually came out really nice. One of the things I saw, and I will mention, is repairing the spindle. Sorry to hopefully not make you dizzy here as I walk. Let's take a seat. One of the things that I did see is one of the ways people fasten the spindles to the rails. In some cases they'll toenail the bottom. In other cases they will drill like a ceramic screw through the top rail directly down into the spindle, countersink it, and then put some epoxy and sand over that. That's another way to do it. The first spindle that I actually replaced, I did it that way. The only issue, it's probably a little bit more secure in terms of it being into the rail, but I mean, these are nice handrails, and I really didn't necessarily want to, be drilling through them. And then one thing I noticed too, and maybe this is the epoxy that I used, the wood filler, but you can actually see the one that I did it on. If you look closely, this is about a year ago, right? So you see the countersink with the epoxy in there. Probably just needed to use a better wood filler, sand it, and prime it and paint it, but over time it looks like you can see the screw hole there. So this go around, considering that the house was built, and I noticed that the way they fastened the original spindles in was through toenailing, so I just did that. And they're secure with the 4 toenails on the bottom and 4 toenails on the top. I don't think those spindles are going anywhere. So hopefully this gives you an idea on, well, 2 things about how to replace a spindle and how to use Citristrip stripping gel. A couple of other notes too is that you got to wear your safety gloves, because although it's safer, they're still toxic chemicals, and you want to make sure that that doesn't get on your skin, and you want to make sure that you do precautions, especially if you have lead-based paint. I had the plastic, which in this case I think it's 6mm plastic, and I used the cardboard on top of it to get the stripper. And I have my trusty water bottle here, and you certainly don't want to use a power sander, at least if you have lead paint. In any case, I may post another video if you found this useful. I know myself that I've seen a lot of videos online, and I wanted to return the favor. And if anyone else had a similar type issue, I hope that this came in handy. All right, I will be signing off. Thank you.